Hey guys, so back with part two of Halloween, the original Halloween review. And so basically, I told what the movie was about in the last review, and now I'm going to kind of explain my take on it. I'm going to explain why I think it's one of the greatest movies of all time. Certainly one of the greatest horror movies, if not the greatest. And yeah, why it still holds up today. Uh, the themes in this film, uh, I mean, some of them are obvious, like, critiquing late 1970s America, high schoolers, um, friends benefits, fuck buddies, whatever. You know, it's. I mean, there are other movies before this in the 70s that really depicted, um, you know, teenagers at the time in, I guess, a negative light, but this movie really took it to another level, and that's the beauty of it, because on the surface it's just a horror film, um, but it's really a lot more than a horror film. The social critiques, messages in the film are very poignant, and they hold true today. Now, the music, I'm going to talk about the music here. The music in the movie, the main, I guess, theme, you know, it wasn't that original, I would say. It reminded me a good bit of the theme from The Exorcist. It is different, though, and uh, Carpenter basically claimed to have written it himself, performed it himself. Um, so that's something to him. And it's a poignant, it has poignant notes, and it really raises the creepy mood throughout the film. Um, they also included a few of my main critiques with it was only one popular song from the era, which is "Don't Fear the Reaper" by Oyster Cult, was included, and I think the main reason more wasn't included is because of copyright, I'm guessing, which is total bullshit, but that's the world we live in even today. Um, at the time the movie came out, it, of course, people were, as with most great films, they were kind of, you know, kind of on the fence about the film. A lot of them said it's basically just been. A lot of them, like even Pauline Kael, I don't know if that's how you say her name, famous kind of nutty film critic. Uh, Basically, she just said basically everything in Halloween has been taken and ripped off from other horror movies. I mean, which is true to a point. I mean, it clearly was influenced by Psycho, by Night of the Living Dead, by um, The Exorcist. You know, so but you have to expect that. I mean, keep in mind this was also one of the first huge horror films, mainstream horror films. And also one of the best received within a few years after its release. Uh, I'm not sure if you could call it a cult film, really, but in some ways it has grown into that. Yeah, I mean, the camera angles, the back foreground shots, and the absence of a ton of blood and gore and all that crazy shit is really what helped this film, I think, and what singled it out from other slasher films that followed in the later 70s, early 80s. Uh, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's got a 94% rating, which is really good for a horror film that's of this caliber. And it really did set standards for modern horror films, and in some good ways, some bad, because basically everybody piled on to the success and how to make Halloween, and they put it in their films in the late 80s, and it is all basically mundane, shitty, boring, slut house basically in a lot of the films. So, but you can expect that. Psycho, which many view as one of the greatest films of all time too, a lot of like the shower scene, that inspired a lot of great films and inspired a lot of bad films. That's just how it is. Um, you know, Friday the 13th was the next major slasher like films that followed Halloween in 1980. And I'm going to review that movie very soon, just like I'm going to be reviewing A Nightmare on Elm Street right after this review. It is one of the better films of 1978. It pales in comparison to The Deer Hunter, to be honest, but I would consider it possibly the second best film of 78, or maybe it's definitely in the top 5. A lot of feminists are kind of divided on this film, with most of them having negative opinions of it. But I think that's just because they're not really looking down, not deeping. They're not really digging down under the surface. They're seeing the themes on the surface, but just like with Nashville, the movie has a good bit more depth than what you would think. In regards to the final girl trope, Laurie Strode basically survived. I think she survived for a purpose. Now it's kind of left up in the air at the end of the film what happens to her and Dr. Loomis. But then we had all the 7 sequels to it and the remakes and all that, blah, blah, blah. Keep in mind, too, though, Donald Pleasant's character, Dr. Loomis, I think it was really fitting for him to come in and shoot him and basically end the film that way. Because Dr. Loomis, he was the one that basically, he basically looked after him for 15 years. And in his words, then or not 15 years, or like 7 years, spent the rest of those years trying to keep him locked up. So I think it was really fitting that he come to the rescue. But the thing is, it's not like Laurie failed to kill him. I mean, Dr. Loomis shot at him, caused him to fall over into the backyard from like 20 or 30 feet. And he still did not die. Or he died and came back to life. The boogeyman, as they say. But yeah, I mean, so I think a lot of feminists and a lot of critics who call themselves professional critics, there's deep insight into it. A lot of of course, I am an aspiring critic, but a lot of people can, if they really think about it, can look deeper even than they dare to, and view what the director is intending you to see. Now, John Carpenter, he claims that there wasn't anything much politically or socially motivated, but that's bullshit. Of course, he knew what he was doing, as all directors do. But yeah, I mean, Michael Myers, his character, this is really interesting. The mask that Michael Myers wore was basically